Picture this. You've just spent 2 brutal years on a blood-soaked battlefield. Every scar on your body is proof you fought for your pack, for your home, for him. The Alpha King who swore under the full moon that you were his forever. You can still taste his last kiss before you left. You carried that memory like armor when everything else was trying to kill you. You win the war. You come home a hero. The pack should be chanting your name. Your mate should be waiting at the gates with open arms and eyes only for you. Instead, you push open the doors of the Great Hall and see him and your alpha, your mate, your everything, with another woman perched on his lap. His fresh mark glaring on her neck like a brand new wound on your soul. What would you do if you walked in and saw that? Would you scream? Would you tear the hall apart wolf to wolf? Would you turn around and disappear into the night forever? Chapter 1. The Hero's Bitter Homecoming. The battlefield still echoed in my mind like a haunting melody. The clash of claws and fangs, the metallic tang of blood soaking the earth under a blood moon. I, Lyra, the Luna of the Silver Fang Pack, had led our warriors through the fires of war against the rogue hordes that threatened our borders. For 2 grueling years I'd fought with every fiber of my being, my wolf spirit fierce and unyielding. We'd won, oh how we'd won. The rogues were scattered, their alpha slain by my own jaws. I returned not just as Luna, but as a hero. My pelt scarred, but my heart swelling with the quiet joy of victory. There was a smile tugging at my lips even now. As I crested the hill overlooking our pack's territory, the familiar scent of pine and wildflowers wrapping around me like a lover's embrace. Home, finally. Home to Ronan, my Alpha King, my mate whose bond had been the anchor keeping me alive through the nightmares. But as I descended into the valley, that happiness began to fracture. Tiny cracks of unease spiderwebbing through my soul. The pack village was alive with lights, music drifting on the wind, flutes and drums in a rhythm that spoke of celebration. My steps quickened, my wolf senses sharpening. I could smell him already. Ronan's musk deep and commanding, intertwined with something else, something floral and sweet, not mine. My heart stuttered, a painful twinge that made me pause, one hand pressing against my chest as if to hold the pieces together. No, it couldn't be. We'd been mated for 5 years before the war called me away. Our bond was unbreakable, sealed under the full moon with bites that marked us eternally. Yet as I approached the grand hall, the center of our pack's life, the whispers grew louder. Pack members spotted me, their eyes widening in awe and pity. Luna Lyra, one murmured, bowing low, but his gaze darted away, laced with sorrow. I pushed open the heavy oak doors, the warmth of the hall enveloping me like a deceptive hug. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of roasted meats, ale, and arousal. Pack celebrations often turned primal, wolves giving in to their instincts. But my eyes locked on the throne dais at the far end. There he was, Ronan, my Alpha King, his broad shoulders draped in the royal fur cloak, his dark hair tousled as if fingers had run through it recently. His golden eyes, usually so piercing and devoted to me, were fixed on her. A woman, no, a she-wolf perched on his lap, her lithe body pressed against his, her neck arched in submission. And there, glaring like a fresh wound, was the mark, his bite on her pale skin raw and claiming. A new Luna, Mira. I recognized her vaguely. A beta's daughter who'd always lingered too close. The world tilted. Pain lanced through me, sharp and unrelenting, like claws raking my insides. My mate, my everything, had betrayed our bond. While I'd bled for our pack, he'd found solace in another's arms. Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them back, forcing a smile that felt like glass shards on my lips. Happy? How could I be? Yet there was a twisted joy in the strength surging through me. The war had forged me into something unbreakable. I wouldn't shatter here. Ronan, I called, my voice steady, cutting through the music like a blade. The hall fell silent, all eyes turning to me. He startled, his arms tightening around Mira before he shoved her aside, standing with a grace that once made my knees weak. Now it only fueled the fire in my veins. Lyra, he breathed, his voice a mix of shock and guilt. Those golden eyes flickering with regret. But was it real? Or just the fear of consequences? He approached, his scent overwhelming, stirring memories of tangled sheets and whispered promises under starlit skies. My body betrayed me, a flush of heat pooling low in my belly, despite the agony in my heart. Damn the mate bond. It lingered, a cruel thread pulling me toward him even now. You've returned, he said, reaching for me, but I stepped back, my smile turning bittersweet. The pain was excruciating, a hollow ache that made me want to howl, to let my wolf tear free and run until the hurt faded. Yet seeing him falter, the mighty Alpha King reduced to uncertainty, brought a spark of happiness, a smile that curved my lips genuinely this time. I'd survived worse than this. The war had taught me that love could be a battlefield too. The pack murmured, tension thickening the air like storm clouds. Mira slunk forward, her eyes narrowed, lips curled in a possessive snarl. She's back, but things have changed. Ronan, I'm your Luna now. Her voice was silk over venom, and she pressed against him, her hand trailing down his chest in a blatant display. Jealousy flared in me, hot and painful, but it mingled with a defiant joy. I was the hero. They couldn't erase that. Ronan's gaze devoured me, lingering on the scars that mapped my skin like badges of honor. The one across my collarbone from a rogue slash, the faint line on my thigh where I'd nearly lost my leg. His breath hitched, desire flashing in his eyes. And I felt it too, that unwelcome pull. Lyra, let me explain, he growled low, stepping closer, his hand brushing my arm. Sparks ignited at the touch, my skin tingling, my core clenching with remembered heat. Gods, why did he still affect me like this? The pain of betrayal warred, with the steamy rush of our past intimacies, nights where he'd claimed me, roughly against the forest floor, his teeth grazing my mark, whispering how I was his forever. But forever was a lie. I pulled away, my voice laced with sorrow and steel. Explain? While I fought for our future, you marked another. The pack hails me as hero, yet you treat me as forgotten. Tears slipped free now, hot trails down my cheeks, but I smiled through them. A painful, radiant thing, happy in my resilience, sad in the loss. The hall held its breath as Ronan lunged forward, his lips crashing against mine in a desperate, heated kiss. I gasped, my body responding instinctively, hands fisting in his shirt as his tongue invaded, tasting of ale and regret. Heat bloomed between us, my thighs pressing together against the ache, the steamy pull of our bond igniting like wildfire. For a moment I melted, the pain blurring into pleasure, his hardness pressing against me, promising the ecstasy I'd craved during lonely war nights. Yet I shoved him back, breathless, my lips swollen. No, I whispered, the word a dagger to my own heart. The happiness faded, leaving only the raw pain, but a smile ghosted my face. I was free in a way. Mira's growl echoed and Ronan looked shattered, his chest heaving. Lyra, please. The doors burst open then, a messenger panting. Alpha, rogues at the border, scouts report an ambush. Chaos erupted, but my eyes met Ronan's, the air thick with unresolved tension. I turned away, my wolf howling inside, ready to fight again. But this time for myself. As the pack mobilized, I slipped into the shadows, my heart a storm of emotions. Sadness weighed heavy, the pain of betrayal a constant throb. Yet there was a smile in my soul. The war hero Luna wasn't done yet. And perhaps in the midst of this agony, a new path awaited, one laced with unexpected heat and healing. Chapter 2, Shadows of the Past. The chaos of the hall dissolved behind me as I melted into the night, the cool air slapping my tear-streaked face like a wake-up call. The pack's shouts faded, rogues at the border, scouts scrambling, Ronan barking orders, but none of it reached the hollow inside my chest. My boots crunched over fallen leaves as I wove through the familiar paths toward the old oak grove, the place Ronan and I used to escape to when the weight of leadership grew too heavy. Back then we'd laugh, shift, chase each other under the moon until we collapsed in a tangle of limbs and fur, breathless and whole. Now the grove felt like a graveyard of memories. I sank against the massive trunk, knees drawn up, the rough bark biting through my tunic. The mate bond pulsed, a cruel reminder. Even severed in spirit, it still thrummed in my veins. Ronan's kiss lingered on my lips, salty with regret, hot with the same hunger that once set me on fire. My body ached for him despite everything, nipples tightening under the fabric at the mere thought of his hands, rough and possessive, sliding down my sides. Gods, the pain of wanting what had betrayed me was exquisite torture. Tears came again, silent and hot, dripping onto my scarred forearms. Sadness wrapped around me like fog, thick and suffocating. I'd given everything, blood, nights without sleep, pieces of my soul, to protect this pack, this man. And he'd replaced me with soft curves and easy submission. Yet beneath the ache, a small, stubborn smile flickered. I'd survived the war. I'd led charges that broke enemy lines, felt the rush of victory when my jaws closed around throats that threatened my home. That strength hadn't vanished. It lived in me still. A quiet, defiant joy that refused to be extinguished. I wiped my face, breathing deep. The night smelled of pine and earth and something wilder. Freedom, maybe. A twig snapped. My head whipped up, wolf senses flaring. The grove wasn't empty. From the deeper shadows between the trees, golden eyes gleamed. Not Ronan's familiar burn, but something darker, more primal. A low growl rumbled through the underbrush, not aggressive, but watchful. My pulse kicked up, a mix of wariness and inexplicable heat. Who dared approach the hero Luna in her moment of fracture? Show yourself, I commanded, voice low but steady. My wolf stirred, ready to shift, claws itching beneath my skin. The figure stepped into a shaft of moonlight. Tall, broad-shouldered, cloaked in dark leathers that hugged muscle like a second skin. His hair was midnight black, falling in wild waves to his shoulders, and those eyes amber-flecked with silver, locked on mine with an intensity that stole my breath. He wasn't pack. Rogue? Spy? Yet his scent hit me like spiced smoke and storm rain. Intoxicating, pulling at something deep and untouched. He raised his hand slowly, palms out. I mean no harm, Luna Lyra. I only came to see the legend for myself. His voice was velvet over gravel, sending a shiver racing down my spine. I stood, ignoring the way my thighs clenched at the sound. Legends don't bleed, and they certainly don't get replaced. The words tasted bitter, but I forced that small smile again, painful, proud. He tilted his head, studying me. Replaced? No. Discarded perhaps, but never replaced. A true alpha would know the difference. The words struck like claws. I stepped closer despite myself, drawn by the heat radiating from him. Up close I saw the faint scars on his neck, the way his jaw clenched as if holding back his own storm. Who are you? Vale, he said simply. From the shadowed ridges beyond your borders. I've watched your pack for months. Watched you fight from afar during the war. His gaze traced the scar on my collarbone, lingering. You wear your victories like armor. It's beautiful. Heat flooded my cheeks, then lower, a traitorous spark igniting between my legs. Damn it. The bond with Ronan still hummed, but this was different. New. Dangerous. Before I could respond, a familiar roar echoed through the trees. Ronan. He burst into the grove, fur cloak billowing, eyes blazing gold with fury and something rawer. Fear? Jealousy? Lyra. His voice cracked on my name. He zeroed in on Vale, lips peeling back in a snarl. Get away from her. Vale didn't flinch, he merely smiled, slow and predatory. She can decide who stands near her, Alpha King. Ronan's gaze snapped to me, pleading beneath the rage. Lyra, come back to the hall, we need to talk, the rogues. No. The word slipped out soft but final. My heart twisted, sad for what we'd lost, happy in this tiny rebellion. I turned to Vale. Why are you here? Vale's eyes never left mine. A warning. The rogues aren't scattered, they're regrouping under a new leader, one who knows your weaknesses and your pack's fractures. He glanced at Ronan, starting with the heart. Ronan lunged, but I stepped between them, hand flat on his chest. The contact seared, old fire flaring. His heartbeat thundered under my palm, matching mine. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to us. His warmth, his scent, the way his breath hitched when I touched him. Then he grabbed my wrist, pulling me close. Don't do this, he whispered, voice rough. Don't let him between us. I searched his face. Regret, desire, desperation. My body responded against my will, nipples peaking, core throbbing with remembered nights of him claiming me, teeth on my neck, hips slamming in rhythm until we both shattered. But the pain won. I yanked free, stepping back toward Vale. You already let her between us, Ronan. His face crumpled. Vale moved closer to me, protective, his hand brushing my lower back, electric, promising. Ronan growled, but the distant howls of approaching rogues cut through the tension. They're here, Vale said quietly. Ronan tore his gaze from me, torn. Lyra. Go, I told him. Protect the pack, I'll handle the border. He hesitated, eyes devouring me one last time, hungry, broken, then turned and ran toward the alarms. Silence fell between Vale and me, heavy with possibility. He stepped nearer, close enough that I felt the heat of him. You're shaking. From anger, I lied. His fingers grazed my arm, tracing a scar with reverent slowness. Sparks danced across my skin. From more than that. His voice dropped, husky. I can smell it on you. The want, the hurt. Let me ease it. My breath caught. His touch was fire, gentle yet demanding. I leaned in despite myself, forehead brushing his chest. His arms encircled me slowly, pulling me against solid muscle. The world tilted as his lips found my temple, then my jaw. Soft, teasing. A moan escaped me, low and pained and needy. He tilted my chin up, amber eyes burning. Say no, and I walk away. I didn't say no. His mouth crashed down on mine. Hard, claiming, tasting of wild nights and forbidden promises. My hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer as tongues tangled, desperate. He backed me against the oak, hands sliding under my tunic, palms rough against my ribs, thumbs brushing the undersides of my breasts. I arched, gasping, the ache between my thighs turning liquid. He growled against my throat, teeth grazing where Ronan's old mark still scarred. This doesn't erase him, he murmured, but it can remind you you're alive. Tears slipped free even as I smiled. Bittersweet, broken, beautiful. Sad for the past, happy for this reckless spark of now. His hand dipped lower, cupping me through leather, pressure perfect. I whimpered, hips rocking instinctively. Then a howl split the night. Rogues. Close. We broke apart, breathing ragged. Vale's eyes darkened with promise. This isn't over. I nodded, wiping my lips, tasting him still. The pain lingered, sharp and real, but so did the smile. Small, fierce, hopeful. We shifted together, wolves bursting free, racing toward the border side by side. From the shadows, unseen eyes watched us go. Chapter 3. The Rogue's Whisper. The night air rushed past us in sharp, cold bursts as our wolves tore through the underbrush, paws pounding earth in perfect unspoken rhythm. Vale's larger black form stayed a half stride ahead, shoulders rolling with effortless power, while my silver-gray wolf matched him beat for beat. The border loomed closer, snarls and metallic clashes, already ringing out ahead like distant thunder. Yet even in the sprint toward danger, something electric hummed between us, not touch, not words, just the raw awareness of another predator running beside. Me who saw me, not the discarded Luna, not the hero trophy, but the woman still burning inside. We burst onto the ridge overlooking the eastern perimeter. Moonlight painted the scene silver and shadow. A dozen rogue wolves circling 3 of our border sentries, testing, probing, looking for weakness. Ronan was already there below, shifted back to human form, shirt torn, barking commands while Mira hovered at his side like a shadow claiming ownership. I felt the familiar stab, sadness so deep it almost felt like drowning. The kind that makes your lungs burn even when you're breathing. He looked up the slope and our eyes locked across the distance. For one heartbeat, everything stopped. The fight, the wind, the ache. His gaze held regret so thick I could taste it. And something hotter, hungrier, possessive still. Even after everything, my wolf wanted to bare her throat and bare her teeth at the same time. I forced my eyes away first. Vale's low rumble vibrated through my fur. They're baiting. Waiting for us to commit. I dipped my head once. Then let's give them something to commit to. We launched down the slope together. The clash was brutal and swift. I took the lead rogue, a scarred brute twice my size, straight in the flank, twisting midair to sink teeth into muscle and tear. He howled. I felt the hot spray across my muzzle. Vale was a black storm beside me, slamming another attacker into the dirt with bone-cracking force. Our movements synced without thought. When I feinted left, he covered right. When he drove forward, I flanked. It was like dancing with someone who already knew every step of your soul. By the time the last rogue fled whimpering into the dark, the ridge was quiet except for panting breaths and the copper scent of blood. I shifted back first, human skin prickling in the night chill, clothes shredded but modesty barely clinging. Vale followed a second later, rising tall and unashamed, moonlight carving every hard line of him in silver. He didn't look away when our eyes met again. Neither did I. You fight like you were born for it, he said quietly, voice rough from the shift. I was born for a lot of things, I answered, the words coming out softer than I intended. Most of them broke. He stepped closer, not crowding, just enough that I could feel the heat rolling off his skin. Close enough that the night suddenly felt smaller, warmer. My pulse kicked hard against my ribs. Not lust exactly, not yet, but something sharper, more dangerous, recognition. Like meeting a mirror that wasn't cracked. Ronan's voice cut across the ridge like a whip. Lyra. He strode up the slope alone, cloak gone, chest heaving, blood streaking one cheek. Mira trailed several paces behind, eyes narrowed to slits. The sentry stayed back, uncertain. Ronan stopped a few feet away, gaze raking over me. Scratches, torn clothes, the blood on my hands. Then flicking to Veil with barely leashed murder. You brought an outsider to our border fight, he said, each word carved from stone. I brought someone who actually warned us they were coming. I shot back. My voice didn't shake. You were too busy celebrating your new Luna to notice the scouts were late. Mira hissed. Ronan's jaw ticked. Veil remained silent beside me, but I felt his presence like a shield at my back. Solid, steady, promising violence if anyone crossed the invisible line. Ronan took one step closer. This isn't over between us. The words landed like a fist to the sternum. Pain bloomed fresh and bright behind my ribs. Memories of his mouth on mine in the hall. Of nights when his weight pinned me to furs and the world made sense. I could still feel the ghost of his teeth on my mark, the way he used to whisper mine like a prayer. But prayers don't replace you while you're bleeding for them. It was over the moment you sank your teeth into her neck, I said. My voice cracked on the last word, but I lifted my chin anyway. Tears stung. I refused to let them fall. Instead, I smiled. Small, sharp, the kind of smile that hurts more than it comforts. You don't get to decide when it starts again. For a second, his mask slipped. Raw anguish flashed across his face. Regret, longing, fury at himself. He looked like a man watching the last piece of something sacred slip through his fingers. Then Mira stepped forward, sliding her arm through his with deliberate possession. She's right, Ronan, some things can't be undone. He didn't shake her off, but he didn't look at her either. His eyes stayed on me, burning. Veil's hand brushed the small of my back, just a graze, barely there. Enough to remind me I wasn't alone on this ridge. Enough to send a shiver racing up my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. Ronan saw it. His fists clenched. Get off my territory, he told Veil, voice lethal. Veil's answer was calm, almost amused. I go where she goes. The words hung between us all like smoke. Ronan's chest rose and fell hard. For a moment, I thought he would lunge. Wolf to wolf, no words, just teeth and fury. Instead, he turned on his heel, dragging Mira with him. She shot me one venomous look over her shoulder before they disappeared down the slope. Silence settled again, heavy and alive. I exhaled shakily, wrapping my arms around myself. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving only the ache. Veil didn't speak right away. He simply stood there, letting me feel the quiet. After a long minute, he murmured, "You didn't need me to say that." I know. My voice was small. But it felt good to hear. He nodded once, then softer. "Come with me, there's a safe hollow 1/2 mile north. You need rest and answers." I looked up at him. Really looked. Those amber-silver eyes held no pity, only steady certainty. And beneath it, something warmer, something patient, something that made my bruised heart stutter in a way it hadn't in years. I nodded. We walked side by side through the trees, shoulders almost brushing, the night folding around us like a secret. Every few steps I caught myself smiling, tiny, secret, painful, hopeful. Behind us, far down the ridge, a lone howl rose, Ronan's long and mournful. I didn't look back. But ahead, in the dark between the pines, something new was whispering. And for the first time since I'd come home, I wanted to listen. Chapter 4. Fractured Alliances. The hollow opened before us like a secret carved into the hillside. Low stone walls half covered in moss. A shallow overhang that kept the wind at bay. And a small fire pit, still warm from someone's earlier passage. Veil had clearly used this place before. A neat stack of dry wood waited beside a folded blanket of thick wool. No luxuries, no pack comforts, just shelter, silence, and the faint scent of cedar smoke that made the night feel less cruel. He knelt first, striking flint to spark the kindling. Flames licked up quickly, casting dancing gold across his features. I stood at the entrance a moment longer, arms wrapped around myself, watching him move with that quiet, deliberate grace. Every motion felt measured, like he was giving me space to decide whether to step inside or bolt back into the dark. I stepped inside, The warmth hit my skin immediately, chasing away the chill that had settled bone deep. I sank onto the blanket opposite him, knees drawn up, staring into the fire. The silence stretched, not awkward, but heavy with everything unsaid. Vale spoke first, voice low. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to." "I don't know what I want," I admitted. The words surprised me with their honesty. I thought coming home would feel like victory. Instead, it feels like waking up inside someone else's story. He nodded slowly, poking the fire with a stick so sparks spiraled upward. Stories change when the teller forgets the main character. A small pained laugh escaped me. Poetic. True. He met my eyes across the flames. "You're not the side character here, Lyra, not to me." The way he said my name, soft, deliberate, without possession, sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with cold. It was dangerous, that shiver. It felt like the first breath after holding it too long, like maybe I could still be wanted without being owned. I looked away, tracing a scar on my forearm with my thumb. The pack is splitting, I can feel it. Half of them still look at me like I hung the moon. The other half, they've already accepted Mira as Luna. Ronan hasn't exactly fought to correct them. Vale's jaw tightened. He's torn, between guilt and convenience. And pride, I added quietly. He can't admit he was wrong without losing face. Another long silence. The fire popped, sending a log shifting. Then Vale asked very softly, "Do you still love him?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Ripples spread through my chest, sadness first, deep and familiar, the kind that makes your throat ache. Then something sharper underneath. Anger, yes, but also a strange, reluctant tenderness for the man he used to be, for the mate bond that had once felt like sunlight on skin. "I love who we were," I said finally. "I hate who we've become." My voice cracked on the last word. I pressed my lips together, refusing to cry again tonight. Instead, I forced that small, defiant smile, the one that hurt as much as it healed. But love isn't enough when trust is gone. And trust. Trust is ashes now. Vale watched me for a long moment. Then he reached into the small satchel at his side and pulled out a water skin, offering it without a word. Our fingers brushed as I took it. Just the lightest contact. Warm skin against warm skin. It wasn't a caress, but it felt like one. My pulse jumped anyway. I drank, handed it back. Our eyes held. "You're not staying in the pack village tonight," he said. Not a question. No, I shook my head. Not with her scent in every corner. Not with him looking at me like I'm something he lost and can't decide. Whether to mourn or reclaim. Vale leaned forward slightly, elbows on knees. "Then stay here. No strings. No expectations, just rest. The border will hold till dawn, and you've earned more than one night without eyes on you." I searched his face, those amber-silver eyes steady, unguarded. No demand, no hidden agenda I could sense. Just patience, and beneath it something fiercer. Respect. For the warrior. For the woman. For the heart still bleeding under the armor. Something inside me unclenched, just a fraction. I nodded. He rose, shook out the blanket so it covered more ground. Then sat again, far enough that the fire stayed between us. Close enough that I could feel his warmth cutting through the night. We didn't speak for a while. Just watched the flames dance, listened to the wind move through the pines. After a time I murmured, "Why are you helping me? Really?" He exhaled through his nose, almost a laugh. "Because I've watched packs devour their strongest members before. Because I've lost people to the same kind of blindness your alpha is drowning in. And because..." He paused, gaze flicking to me raw for the first time. "Because the first time I saw you on that battlefield, 2 years ago, from a ridge miles away, you fought like the world owed you nothing, and you owed it everything. I've never forgotten it." My throat tightened. No one had ever described me that way. Not even Ronan in our best days. I swallowed hard. "You don't know me. I know enough." His voice dropped lower, quieter. "And I want to know more. If you'll let me." The words hung there, simple, unguarded, laced with a heat that wasn't touched but felt like it anyway. My heart thudded unevenly, sad for the ruins behind me, hopeful for whatever fragile thing might grow in front of me. The contradiction made my chest ache in the sweetest, most painful way. I didn't answer with words. Instead, I shifted closer, just an inch, enough that our shoulders nearly brushed. He didn't move toward me, didn't push. He simply stayed, solid and present, letting me choose the distance. We sat like that until the fire burned low. Eventually, my eyelids grew heavy. I lay back on the blanket, staring up at the stars visible through the overhang. Vale stayed seated, keeping watch. Just before sleep claimed me, I whispered, "Thank you." His answer came soft, almost lost in the crackle of embers. "Sleep, Lyra. Tomorrow we face whatever comes next. Together, if you want." I smiled into the dark, small, real, bittersweet. For the first time since I'd crossed back over the border, the weight on my chest felt a little lighter. Dawn was still hours away when the first distant howl pierced the quiet, not a warning of rogues this time, but something sharper. A summons. From the heart of the pack village. Ronan's howl, calling the council. Calling me. Vale's head lifted, eyes narrowing. I sat up slowly, heart kicking hard again. Whatever fractured alliances waited in that hall, they were about to be tested, and I wasn't walking in alone. Chapter 5. Flames of Betrayal. The summons howled again, 3 long, commanding notes that vibrated through the trees like a blade drawn across stone. Ronan's voice in wolf form carried farther than words ever could. It wasn't just a call to council. It was a demand, a reminder of who still held the crown. I released Vale's hand the moment we cleared the hollow's entrance. Not because I regretted taking it, but because whatever came next needed to be faced with both hands free. He didn't protest. He simply fell into step beside me, shoulder a steady shadow at my side, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him cutting the pre-dawn chill. The path back to the village wound downhill, moonlight thinning as gray light bled along the eastern ridge. Every step pulled the knot in my chest tighter. Sadness had become a constant companion now, quiet, heavy, familiar. But tonight it felt edged with something new. Anticipation, not of reconciliation, of reckoning. We reached the, outskirts just as the first torches flared to life along the great hall's perimeter. Pack members were already gathering, elders in fur cloaks, warriors still streaked with border fight blood, younger wolves wide-eyed and whispering. Heads turned as we approached. Murmurs rippled outward like water disturbed by a stone. "She's here, with the outsider." After everything, I kept my chin high, gaze forward. Let them look. Let them judge. I'd earned the right to walk these paths with or without their approval. The hall doors stood wide. Inside, the long table was lit by iron braziers, flames throwing long shadows across the faces already seated. Ronan sat at the head, still in human form now, dark hair damp with sweat, jaw set like carved granite. Mira occupied the seat to his right, the Luna's place, her posture regal, eyes glittering with triumph. The council flanked them, old Mara with her knowing gaze, Torin the grizzled war chief, several betas whose loyalty had always bent toward power rather than principle. Silence fell when Vale and I crossed the threshold. Ronan rose slowly. His eyes found mine first, searching, raw, conflicted, then flicked to Vale with barely contained fury. He didn't speak immediately. He didn't have to. The air crackled with everything he wasn't saying. Mara broke the quiet voice dry as autumn leaves. "Luna, Lyra, you've been summoned. And you've brought a guest." "He's not a guest," Ronan said before I could answer. "He's trespassing." Vale's laugh was soft, almost gentle. "I crossed no border unmarked. Your sentries saw me. Your Luna invited me." Mira's lip curled. "She is not." "Enough!" Ronan's growl cut her off. He looked at me again, softer this time, almost pleading. "Lyra, sit, we need to speak plainly." I didn't move toward the table. Instead, I walked to the center of the hall where moonlight from the high windows fell in a pale column. Vale stayed a pace behind me, protective, not possessive. "I'll speak," I said, "but not from a seat at your table, not tonight." A ripple of unease moved through the council. I met Ronan's gaze without flinching. "You called this council to discuss the border breach. Fine. But before any talk of rogues or strategy, address the fracture in this room. Address why half your pack looks at me with pity and the other half with suspicion. Address why your new Luna sits where I once did while I still breathe." Mira leaned forward, voice honeyed venom. "You were gone 2 years, Lyra. Packs move forward. Alphas cannot wait forever." "I didn't ask him to wait forever," I said quietly. "I asked him to wait until I came home." The words landed heavier than I expected. Several council members dropped their eyes. Even Torin shifted uncomfortably. Ronan's hands braced on the table. I thought you were dead. The admission cracked something open in his voice, something raw and wounded. My own chest ached in answer. For a heartbeat, I saw the man I'd loved, the one who'd once held me through nightmares, who'd kissed my scars like they were stars. I sent word, I said, 3 times, ravens, messengers, they never reached you. He shook his head once, slow. None. Mira's smile was small, satisfied, too satisfied. The realization hit me like cold water. I turned to her. You intercepted them. Gasps echoed around the table. Mira didn't flinch. I protected the pack's stability, and absent Luna is no Luna at all. You protected your position, I corrected, voice low but carrying. You lied to your alpha, to your mate. Ronan's head snapped toward her. Mira? She lifted her chin. I did what was necessary. The pack needed leadership. You were grieving. Broken. I gave you purpose again. His face drained of color. You told me she was gone. You showed me a bloodied token. Her cloak, torn with her scent fading. You said the rogues had taken her. I said what the scouts reported, she answered smoothly. Too smoothly. I stepped closer. The scouts who answer to you. Silence. Then Ronan's voice, very quiet. Show me the reports now. Mira hesitated, the first crack in her composure. When she didn't move, Ronan roared, Now! She rose stiffly, crossed to a side table, and drew out a small leather folio. She placed it before him without meeting his eyes. He opened it. Scanned the pages. His hands began to shake. These are forgeries, he whispered. The dates. The seals. They don't match. Mira's mask slipped. I only wanted... You wanted power, I finished. The words tasted like ash. Sadness surged. Deep bone-weary sadness for the trust shattered. For the years stolen. For the mate bond that had once felt sacred and now felt like chains. But beneath it, rising slow and sure, came something brighter. Clarity. Relief. The smile that curved my lips was small. Pained but real. I looked at Ronan. You believed her because it was easier than hoping. He met my gaze, shattered, guilty, grieving. I failed you. Yes, I said softly. You did. The council chamber felt suddenly too small, too full of broken things. Vale spoke then, voice calm but edged. The rogues aren't the only threat at your gates. The betrayal inside weakens you more than any enemy outside. Mara nodded slowly. The pack must choose. One Luna, one truth. Ronan looked around the table. Faces torn, uncertain, then back to me. Lyra, I want to fix this. I shook my head. Some things aren't fixed with words. Or apologies. Or even love. I turned toward the doors. Vale moved with me. Behind us, Ronan's voice cracked. Don't walk away. I paused at the threshold, moonlight spilling across my shoulders. I'm not walking away from the pack, I said without turning. I'm walking toward what's left of my own heart. The doors closed behind us with a heavy thud. Outside, the sky was turning rose gold with approaching dawn. Vale walked beside me in silence for several paces. Then quietly, You're shaking. I know. He didn't offer comfort. He didn't need to. His presence was enough, steady, warm, unyielding. We stopped at the edge of the village square. The first rays of sun touched the rooftops. I looked up at him. Thank you for standing with me. He inclined his head. I'd stand with you against worse. A small, genuine smile broke through the ache. Sad for what was lost. Happy, fiercely, quietly happy for what might still be found. Then the alarm horn sounded from the western ridge. Rogues. Again. But this time the howl that answered wasn't Ronan's alone. It was mine, rising sharp and clear, calling the pack to arms. And beside me, Vale answered with his own deep, resonant call. We ran toward the sound together, side by side, unbreakable. Chapter 6, Duel of Hearts. The sun had barely cleared. The ridge when the battle cry split the morning air, not a single howl, but a chorus ragged and furious. Rogues poured from the western tree line like dark water breaking a dam. More than before, better organized, moving with purpose. They weren't testing anymore. They were striking. I shifted mid-stride, silver-gray fur ripping through torn clothes as my wolf surged forward. Vale was already beside me, black coat gleaming, muscles coiling like storm clouds. We didn't need words. Our eyes met once, quick, fierce. A silent promise, and then we were running straight into the teeth of the enemy. The clash was chaos made flesh. Claws raked air, jaws snapped, bodies slammed together in brutal rhythm. I took down the first rogue who lunged at me. With a twist and a vicious tear at the throat, hot blood sprayed across my muzzle, metallic and sharp. Vale was a whirlwind to my left, driving two attackers back with sheer unrelenting force. We moved like extensions of each other. When I feinted, he struck. When he pinned, I finished. The pack rallied around us, some hesitating at first, then surging forward as they saw the outsider fighting not for glory but for them. Ronan appeared on the far flank. Golden Wolf, massive and terrifying, roaring commands even as he tore through the line. Mira fought at his side, smaller, quicker, vicious in her precision. For a moment our gazes locked across the melee. His eyes held everything: regret, fury, longing, shame. Mine held nothing he could claim anymore. The rogues faltered. One by one they broke, retreating into the trees with yelps and blood trails. Victory came fast, almost too fast. Something felt wrong, coordinated, yes, but not desperate. Almost like bait. We shifted back on the bloodied grass, breaths heaving, skin slick with sweat and crimson streaks. The pack gathered in loose circles, tending wounds, counting the fallen. Only 3 of ours down, thank the moon. But the cost still burned. Ronan approached first, human again, chest rising and falling hard. His gaze swept over me, searching for injury, for weakness, for anything he could still protect. Then it settled on Vale, standing close enough that our arms nearly brushed. "You fought well," Ronan said to him. The words sounded scraped raw. Vale inclined his head once. "I fought for her." Ronan's jaw clenched. "She's still pack, still mine to protect." "Not yours to own," I said quietly. The words hung between us like drawn steel. The pack stilled. Eyes darted. Elders, warriors, young ones, all waiting. Ronan looked at me then. Really looked. Not as the hero returned. Not as the Luna he'd replaced. But as Lyra. The woman who'd once laughed in his arms. The woman whose heart he'd broken. "I was wrong," he said, voice low enough that only those closest could hear. "About everything. The messages. Mira. Believing the easiest lie because the truth hurt too much to face." He swallowed. I let grief turn me into a coward. The admission cracked something in the air. Sadness rolled through me. Deep, tidal. The kind that makes your bones ache. I remembered nights before the war, his head on my chest, whispering futures we'd build together. I remembered the way his touch used to feel like home. That home was gone now, ashes underfoot. Yet hearing him say it out loud in front of the pack brought a strange, quiet relief. Not forgiveness, not yet. But truth. Finally, truth. I stepped forward. "You chose comfort over hope. You chose her over waiting. And every day I fought on that battlefield, I carried the hope that you were still mine. That hope kept me alive. When I came home and found it gone, my voice wavered, but I steadied it. It nearly killed me more than any rogue ever could." Ronan's eyes glistened. He didn't look away. "But I'm still here," I continued. "Still breathing, still fighting, and I'm done letting your choices define mine." A small, trembling smile curved my lips, painful, proud, alive. "Fate doesn't get to decide who I am, neither do you. Not anymore." The pack murmured, some in shock, some in quiet agreement. Vale remained silent at my side, but I felt his presence like a steady heartbeat. Warm, certain, patient. Ronan exhaled shakily. "What do you want, Lyra? Tell me, I'll give it. The title, the hall, anything." "I want choice," I said. "Mine, not yours to grant, not the pack's to vote on, mine." He nodded once, slow, like a man accepting sentence. Then Mira's voice cut through, sharp, trembling with rage. "You can't just walk away from the bond, from him, from us." I turned to her. "The bond was broken the moment you helped forge the lie that kept me away. You didn't steal my place, Mira. You stole time, years. That's the crime I won't forgive." She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she looked small. Ronan spoke again, softer. "There's something else. Something I learned last night after you left the hall." He reached into his tunic and drew out a folded parchment. Old, edges worn. "One of the scouts found this in the old messenger roost. Hidden. It's your last raven note. The one you sent 6 months ago. The seal was broken, but the words are yours." He held it out. I didn't take it. I didn't need to. I knew what it said. I'm coming home. Hold on, I love you. My throat closed. Tears burned, but I blinked them back. You kept hoping, he whispered, even when I stopped. The sadness crested then, wave after wave of it crashing through me. For us. For what might have been. For the years neither of us could reclaim. But beneath it, rising slow and bright, came something else. Acceptance. Not bitter, not defeated. Peaceful almost. A smile, real this time, soft and sure, touched my lips. I did, I said. And now I'm done hoping for what was. I'm hoping for what can be. I looked at Vale then, really looked. His amber-silver eyes met mine without demand, only quiet strength. No claim, no ownership, just presence, choice. Ronan followed my gaze. Something in his face shifted, resignation. Yes, but also a flicker of understanding. He stepped back. The pack is yours to lead if you want it. Or not, I won't stand in your way. I shook my head. I don't want your crown. I want my freedom. He nodded once more. Then he turned to the pack. The council will meet at dusk. We decide nothing today. But know this. Lyra is pack. Always. Whatever path she chooses. Murmurs of agreement rose. Tentative at first, then stronger. I exhaled, shoulders loosening for the first time in weeks. Vale touched my elbow, light, grounding. Walk with me? I nodded. We moved away from the gathering, toward the tree line where the grass was still bent from battle. The sun climbed higher, warming blood-streaked skin. When we were far enough that voices faded, he spoke quietly. You're stronger than any of them realize. I'm just tired of bleeding for people who won't bleed for me. He stopped, turned to face me fully. I would. 2 words, simple, devastating in their honesty. My heart stuttered. Pain and hope tangled so tight I couldn't separate them. Sad for the road behind. Happy, fiercely, quietly happy for the one opening ahead. I smiled up at him, small, real, trembling. I know, I whispered. We stood there in the morning light, not touching, not needing to. Just breathing the same air. Together. Chapter 7, Echoes of New Bonds. The horns faded into the morning hush, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves and our shared breathing. Vale and I stood at the edge of the clearing, the battlefield grass still warm beneath our feet. The scent of blood and pine thick in the air. The pack had begun to disperse, some to tend wounds, others to bury the fallen, but neither of us moved. Not yet. I tilted my head back, letting the first true sunlight of the day touch my face. It felt like a gentle hand, wiping away the grime of too many fights. My wolf settled inside me, quiet for once, content to simply exist in this pocket of stillness. Vale watched me without speaking. His silence wasn't empty. It was full of patience, of questions he wouldn't ask until I was ready to answer them. That alone made my chest ache in a way that was almost sweet, almost unbearable. After a long minute, I turned to him. You said you'd bleed for me. I did. Why? He exhaled slowly, gaze dropping to the ground between us before lifting again to meet mine. Because I've seen what happens when someone fights alone for too long. The light in them dims, not all at once, piece by piece, until one day they look in the mirror and don't recognize, the eyes staring back, his voice stayed low, steady. I won't watch that happen to you. The words landed soft but deep, stirring something I'd kept locked away since the day I first stepped onto that distant warfield. Sadness rose, old and familiar for the years I'd spent proving my worth to people who stopped seeing it. For the nights I'd lain awake wondering if anyone would notice if I never came home. But right behind the sadness came warmth. Not the scorching heat of old passion, but something quieter, steadier. A glow that started in my chest and spread outward until my fingertips tingled. I smiled, small at first, then wider. The kind of smile that hurts your cheeks because it's been waiting so long to break free. Thank you, I whispered, for seeing me when I forgot how to see myself. Vale's expression softened, the hard lines of his face easing into something almost tender. You never stopped seeing yourself. Lyra, you just stopped believing the reflection. We started walking then, slow, aimless, following no path in particular. The village lay behind us. Ahead stretched the wilder parts of the territory, rolling hills, thickets of birch and alder, streams that sang over smooth stones, the kind of places where wolves could run without being watched. After a while, we reached a small overlook, a flat shelf of rock that dropped away to a valley below, The sun was higher now, painting everything gold. We sat on the warm stone, knees almost touching, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself talk. Not about the war, not about Ronan or Mira or the pack's fractures, about the little things. How the sky over the northern front looked like shattered glass at dawn. How the first snow tasted clean on my tongue after weeks of ash and smoke. How I used to hum old lullabies under my breath during night watches so the younger warriors wouldn't feel so alone. Vale listened. Really listened. No interruptions. No advice. Just the steady rhythm of his breathing matching mine. When I ran out of words, he spoke quietly. I grew up in a pack that prized strength above everything. Strength meant silence. Strength meant never asking for help. I watched my sister waste away because she thought asking made her weak. He paused, fingers tracing an invisible pattern on the rock between us. She didn't make it through her first winter alone. I swore I'd never let anyone I cared about feel that invisible again. My throat tightened. You cared about her, more than anything. He looked at me then, eyes clear and unguarded. And now, I care about you. Not because you're a hero, not because you're Luna, because you're Lyra, the woman who still hums lullabies when no one's listening. The confession hung there, simple, honest, devastating in its quiet power. I reached out slowly. My fingers brushed the back of his hand, not a grasp, just contact, skin to skin, warmth to warmth. He didn't pull away. He turned his palm up, letting our fingers lace together in the easiest, most natural way. No rush, no demand, just the slow, steady beat of two hearts finding a shared tempo. Sadness lingered, for the sister he'd lost, for the years we'd both spent armored against the world. But it didn't drown the joy blooming beneath it. Joy in small things, the sun on our skin, the wind carrying birdsong, the simple miracle of not being alone. We stayed like that until the light shifted, and the valley below began to fill with evening shadow. Eventually I spoke, voice soft. What happens now? He squeezed my hand once. Whatever you choose. If you want to stay with the pack and rebuild, I'll stand with you. If you want to leave and find somewhere new, I'll walk beside you. If you need time alone to breathe, I'll wait. I laughed, a small, surprised sound. You make it sound so easy. It isn't. His thumb traced a slow circle over my knuckles. But it's honest. Honest. The word settled over me like cool water on fevered skin. I leaned my head against his shoulder, just enough to feel the solid warmth of him, the steady rise and fall of his breath. He didn't move closer. He didn't need to. The space between us had already shrunk to nothing. We watched the sun sink lower, turning the sky shades of rose and amber. When the first stars appeared, I lifted my head. I'm not ready to decide everything tonight. You don't have to. But I am ready for this. I lifted our joined hands between us. For someone who stays because they want to, not because fate or duty or guilt demands it. Vale's eyes softened further. Then I'm staying. A fresh wave of emotion crashed through me. Pain for the road behind. Fierce happiness for the one opening now. The contradiction made me feel alive in a way I hadn't since before the war. I smiled up at him, open, unguarded, real. He smiled back, slow, warm, full of quiet promise. We rose together, hands still linked, and started the walk back toward the village lights. Not as Luna an outsider, not as broken mate and stranger, just as Lyra and Vale. Two souls who'd found each other in the wreckage. And for the first time in too long, the future didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like possibility. Chapter 8. Trials of the Moon. The village fires had burned low by the time we returned, their embers glowing like scattered stars against the dark earth. Pack members moved quietly, carrying water, bandaging wounds, speaking in hushed tones that carried the weight of the day. No one stopped us. No one questioned why the outsider walked beside their returned hero with their hands brushing every few steps. The silence felt like permission. We paused at the edge of the central square. The great hall loomed ahead, its doors closed but torchlight leaking from the high windows. Inside, the council would already be gathering. Elders, betas, the few warriors whose voices still carried weight. Dusk had come and gone. The moon was rising fat and silver over the treetops. Vale glanced toward the hall, then back at me. They'll want answers tonight. I know. My voice came out steadier than I felt. and they'll want them from me. He studied my face for a long moment. You don't have to give them anything you're not ready to give. I'm ready. I met his eyes, those steady amber-silver depths that never demanded, only offered. Not for them, for me. A faint smile touched his lips, small, proud, warm enough to chase the night chill from my skin. He inclined his head once. Then I'll be right here when you come out. I nodded, drew a slow breath, and walked toward the hall alone. The doors opened before I reached them. Mara stood on the threshold, old eyes sharp and knowing. She stepped aside without a word, letting me pass. Inside, the long table was lit by a single wide brazier. Flames danced across faces I'd known my whole life, some lined with worry, some with guarded hope, a few still shadowed by doubt. Ronan sat at the head, but he didn't rise. He looked smaller somehow, shoulders bowed under an invisible weight. Mira was absent. Whether by choice or command, I didn't ask. Torrin spoke first, voice rough from shouting orders all day. We've heard the stories, the forged messages, the intercepted ravens. The pack needs to know where we stand. One Alpha, one Luna, or none at all. Murmurs rippled around the table. I walked to the center of the room where moonlight fell in a pale pillar through the open roof. I didn't sit. I didn't bow. I simply stood. I'm not here to reclaim a title, I began. I'm here to tell you the truth as I see it. Silence settled, thick and expectant. I fought for this pack when no one else could. I bled for it. I carried its name into battles that should have killed me. And when I came home, I found part of it had already moved on without me. My gaze swept the faces, some flinching, some nodding slowly. That hurt deeper than any claw or fang, but pain doesn't erase duty. It sharpens it. I paused, letting the word settle. The bond with Ronan is broken, not by fate, not by me, by choices. His, Mira's. Mine too. I chose to survive when others might have given up. I chose to come back when staying away would have been easier. And now I choose again. Ronan's eyes lifted to mine. They were red-rimmed, exhausted but clear. No anger, no possession, just listening. I choose the pack, I continued. Not as Luna, not as mate, as one of you. If you'll have me. If you won't, I'll walk away with no bitterness. But know this, I will never again let anyone decide my worth for me. Not an alpha, not a council, not even the moon herself. A long hush followed. Then Mara spoke, voice dry but steady. Words are easy after battle, the moon demands more, she always has. I knew what was coming. Every pack had its rituals, trials under the full moon to prove loyalty, strength, heart, not combat. Something older, something that stripped away pretense. The right of echoes, I said quietly. Mara nodded. You speak of choice. Let the moon echo it back to you. Stand under her light at midnight. Let her see your heart. If it rings true, the pack will know. If it falters, we will know that too. I felt the weight of every gaze. Felt the old scars on my skin prickle as if remembering every fight, every loss, every moment I'd almost broken. I lifted my chin, I accept. Murmurs rose, some approving, some uncertain, a few relieved. Ronan stood then, slowly. He walked around the table until he stood before me, close enough that I could see the faint tremble in his hands. I won't ask forgiveness tonight, he said, voice low enough for only me to hear. I don't deserve it, but I will stand witness, not as Alpha, as someone who once loved you better than this. Tears stung my eyes, not from pain this time, but from the strange, aching beauty of closure. I nodded once. He stepped back. The council dispersed quietly. No grand declarations, just the quiet understanding that midnight would decide more than words ever could. Outside, Vale waited exactly where he'd promised, leaning against a stone pillar, arms crossed, eyes on the path I'd taken. When he saw me, he straightened, reading my face in an instant. Right of echoes, he said, not a question. I nodded. Midnight. He exhaled through his nose, almost a laugh. They never make it easy. No, I smiled, small, wry but steady. But I'm not afraid of the moon anymore. We walked together toward the sacred clearing at the heart of the territory. a wide circle of ancient stones under open sky. No one followed. This part was mine alone. But Vale stayed near enough that I could feel him, a warm presence at the edge of the trees, watching over without intruding. As the hours passed, we sat on the grass outside the circle. He told me stories of his sister, small, bright memories that made me laugh even through the ache. I told him about the lullabies I still carried, the ones that had kept me sane on frozen battlefields. We traded pieces of ourselves like offerings, quiet and unhurried. When the moon reached its zenith, I rose. Vale stood too. He didn't touch me. He didn't need to. "Whatever she shows you," he said softly, "it won't change who you are to me." My heart squeezed. Pain and joy so tangled they felt like one emotion. I smiled at him, open, vulnerable, alive. "I know." I stepped into the circle alone. The stones hummed under my bare feet. Moonlight poured down like liquid silver, cool and searching. I closed my eyes and let it in. Memories rose unbidden. Ronan's laugh in better days. Mira's satisfied smile. Blood on snow. The weight of a crown I never wanted. Vale's hand in mine under morning sun. The quiet strength of choosing myself. I didn't fight them. I let them echo, wave after. Wave until the ache in my chest became something clearer, something honest. I felt it then, a resonance deep in my bones. Not judgment, not approval, just truth. My heart rang steady. True. When I opened my eyes, the moon was still high, but the air felt lighter. The stones had gone quiet. I stepped out of the circle. Vale was waiting. He searched my face, then smiled, slow, relieved, radiant. "You're still here," he said. "Still here," I echoed. We walked back toward the village side by side, shoulders brushing. The night folding around us like quiet approval. Behind us the moon watched, impartial, eternal. Ahead the pack fires waited, and between them something new was growing, stronger than fate, deeper than duty. Something chosen. Chapter 9. Rescue and Reckoning. Morning light filtered through the canopy in thin golden threads as the village slowly woke. The pack moved with the quiet efficiency of people who had survived one storm and knew another was coming. Fires were stoked. Wounds rebound. Children kept close. No one spoke of the right of echoes aloud, but the air carried its echo. Lighter somehow, as if the moon had lifted a weight no one had named. I found Vale at the edge of the training grounds, sharpening a short blade with slow, deliberate strokes. He looked up when my shadow fell across him, and the smile that curved his mouth was small but real. "You're still here," I said, echoing his words from last night. "Still here," he answered, setting the whetstone aside. He rose, dusting his hands on his leathers. "Sleep?" "Some," I shrugged, enough. He studied me a moment longer, then nodded toward the path leading north. "Walk?" We fell into step together, leaving the village behind. The trail wound upward through thinning pines until it opened onto a rocky promontory overlooking the valley. Below us, the river glittered like molten silver. Above, hawks circled lazy spirals against a pale sky. We sat on a flat boulder still warm from the rising sun. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence felt earned, comfortable, not heavy. Then Vale broke it quietly. "The rogues won't stop. Yesterday was a probe. Today or tomorrow they'll come harder. They smell weakness." "I know." I pulled my knees up, resting my chin on them. "And they're right, the pack is fractured. Ronan is trying to hold it together, but trust doesn't rebuild in a day." Vale turned slightly toward me. "You could lead them. After last night, they'd follow. Maybe." I exhaled slowly. "But I don't want to lead out of pity or obligation. If I stay, it has to be because they choose me, not because the moon said my heart rang true." He nodded, understanding without needing more words. We sat in that quiet agreement until a sharp, distant cry shattered it. Not a howl, but a human shout carried on the wind. We were on our feet in the same heartbeat. Another cry, closer now. Then the unmistakable sound of fighting, steel on steel. Snarls, a pained yelp cut short. Vale's eyes narrowed. "West Ridge, near the old lookout." We ran. The scene unfolded below us like a nightmare painted in daylight. A small scouting party, 4 of ours, surrounded by twice as many rogues. They fought in a tight knot, backs to each other, but they were losing ground fast. One wolf was already down, blood pooling dark beneath him. And in the center of the fray, bound and gagged, knelt Vale's silhouette. No, not Vale. A taller figure, dark-haired, struggling against ropes. The rogue leader, a massive gray wolf, snapped jaws inches from the captive's throat. Vale froze for half a breath. Then he whispered hoarse, "That's Cassian, my brother." The world narrowed to that single fact. I didn't hesitate. We take the flanks. Draw them out. He met my eyes, gratitude and fury, and something deeper flashing through them, then nodded once. We shifted together, wolves bursting free, silver and black streaking down the slope like arrows loosed from the same bow. I hit the first rogue from the side, teeth sinking into shoulder, twisting hard. He howled, staggered. Vale was already among them, a black storm tearing through the line, forcing them to split their attention. The pack scouts rallied at the sight of us. One broke free long enough to slash at the ropes binding Cassian. The tall man rose, shaking off the gag, eyes wild with relief when they found Vale. "Brother," he started. "Later," Vale snarled, human voice rough through, wolf fangs as he shifted mid-leap to drive. Another attacker back. I circled the gray leader, feinting left, then striking right, claws raking across his flank. He spun faster than I expected, jaws closing on my shoulder. Pain flared hot and bright, but I used it, twisted inside his grip, slamming my weight against him until he lost balance. Vale finished him with a single, brutal lunge, teeth at the throat, quick and merciful. The remaining rogues broke, fleeing into the trees with tails low. Silence fell, broken only by panting breaths and the drip of blood on stone. I shifted back first, pressing a hand to the bite on my shoulder. It throbbed, but wasn't deep. Vale was already human again, striding toward his brother. Cassian met him halfway, pulling him into a rough embrace. "You idiot," Cassian muttered against Vale's shoulder. "I told you not to come alone." "I didn't," Vale said simply, glancing back at me. Cassian followed his gaze. His eyes, same amber silver as Vale's, widened slightly, then softened with understanding. He inclined his head. "Thank you." I nodded, too winded for more words. The scouts gathered the wounded, one of them already shifting to carry the fallen back to the village. Vale helped Cassian to his feet. The taller man limped but stood tall. We started the walk down together, slow, battered, alive. Halfway to the village, Cassian spoke low to Vale. "They took me 3 nights ago. Said they wanted leverage. Said your name like it was a curse." Vale's jaw tightened. "They'll regret it." Cassian glanced at me again. "They mentioned her too. The hero Luna. Said she was the key to breaking Silverfang for good." A chill moved through me. Not fear exactly, but the cold certainty of a larger game. Vale's hand brushed mine, brief, grounding. "They won't touch her." Cassian studied us both for a moment, then smiled faintly. "I can see that." We reached the village outskirts just as the sun climbed toward noon. Pack members rushed forward, some to help the wounded, others to stare at the stranger who looked so much like Vale. Ronan appeared at the gate, face drawn, eyes scanning the group until they found me. Relief flickered across his features, followed quickly by something more complicated when he saw Cassian in the way. Vale stood close to my side. He approached slowly. "Report." One of the scouts stepped forward, voice steady despite the blood on his tunic. "Ambush, they were waiting." Took Cassian here as bait. Lyra and the outsider turned it. Ronan's gaze settled on Vale's brother. "You're—" "Cassian," he answered. Vale's kin, and grateful. Ronan nodded once, then looked at me. "You're hurt." "It'll heal." I met his eyes, calm, no anger, no plea. Just truth. "We need to talk strategy, all of us. The rogues aren't random anymore. They're hunting." He exhaled, shoulders dropping a fraction. "Council chamber. 1 hour." I nodded. As the crowd began to disperse, Vale leaned close, voice for my ears alone. "You're bleeding." "I know." "Let me look at it." I smiled, small, tired, but warm. "Later, first we plan." He didn't argue, just stayed at my side as we walked toward the hall. Behind us, the sun burned higher. Ahead, the reckoning waited, not just with rogues, but with every choice still hanging in the air. And for the first time, I felt the weight of it all, and didn't buckle. Because I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. Chapter 10, The Final Mark. The braziers in the great hall had burned down to steady orange coals by the time the council reconvened. Smoke curled lazily toward the open roof, carrying the faint scent of cedar and iron. Every seat was filled, elders, warriors, even the younger ones who usually lingered at the edges. No one whispered. The air felt thick with anticipation, like the moment before a storm breaks. Ronan stood at the head of the table, hands braced on the wood, eyes shadowed but clear. He didn't look like a king claiming power. He looked like a man laying down a burden. "I called you here to end uncertainty," he began, voice carrying without effort. "The rogues are no longer probing. They're gathering. Scouts report their numbers swelling at the northern pass. Organized, armed, led by someone who knows our weaknesses too well." He paused, gaze sweeping the room until it settled on me. "And they want Lyra. They believe breaking her breaks us." Murmurs rose, sharp, angry. A few fists clenched on the table. Ronan lifted a hand. Silence returned. "I've failed this pack in ways I can't undo," he continued. "I believed lies when I should have searched for truth. I replaced loyalty with convenience. I let grief blind me." His voice cracked on the last word, but he didn't look away from me. "So today I step aside, not in defeat, in repair. The crown passes to the one who has never stopped fighting for Silverfang, even when Silverfang stopped fighting for her." He reached up, unclasped the heavy fur mantle at his shoulders and let it fall to the floor. The sound was soft, final. No one moved. Then Mara rose slowly, joints creaking. "The pack must choose." Voice by voice, one by one they spoke. Torin first, Lyra, an elder woman whose son I'd pulled from the front line 2 winters ago. Lyra, a young warrior who'd once feared my name. Lyra. The chorus grew, steady, certain, overwhelming. When the last voice fell silent, Ronan exhaled like a man who'd been holding his breath for years. He looked at me again. "It's yours if you want it." I stepped forward into the center of the hall. Moonlight from the roof opening spilled across my shoulders, cool and bright. "I don't want the crown," I said. "I never did. But I want this pack whole, strong, honest, so I'll lead if you'll lead with me. No thrones, no titles that divide. Just us. Together." A ripple of agreement moved through the room. Nods, soft affirmations, a few relieved smiles. Ronan inclined his head once. "Then it's done." He stepped aside. I didn't take his place at the head. Instead, I turned to the doors. "The rogues won't wait for ceremony. We meet them at dawn on our terms." The hall erupted, not in cheers, but in motion. People rose, voices overlapping with plans, questions, resolve. Vale found me outside as the crowd spilled into the night. He'd been waiting near the pillars again, arms crossed, eyes tracking every face that passed. "You're shaking," he said quietly when I reached him. "From everything," I admitted. My shoulder still throbbed from the earlier bite. My heart felt too full and too raw at once, but good shaking. The kind that means something's finally shifting. He smiled, slow, warm, the kind that made the night feel smaller and safer. "You did that." "We did." Cassian appeared behind him, limping less now, expression lighter. "Brother, Luna," he dipped his head to me. "The scouts are ready. We'll hold the northern ridge till you give the word." I nodded. "Thank you." "Both of you." Cassian glanced between us, then clapped Vale on the shoulder. "Don't be long. Dawn comes fast." He limped away, leaving us in the quiet space between hall and starlight. Vale turned to me fully. "You're still bleeding." I laughed, a small breathless sound. Always noticing the small things. "Not small." He reached out slowly, fingers brushing the torn fabric at my shoulder. "Let me clean it." Before the fight, we walked to the small healer's den at the edge of the square. Empty now. The wound had already moved to the longhouse. Inside, moonlight slanted through a narrow window, painting silver stripes across the low table and the jars of herbs. Vale worked in silence, gentle hands unwrapping the makeshift bandage, cleaning the bite with cool water and salve that smelled of yarrow and pine. Every touch was careful, reverent. Not claiming, honoring. When he finished, he didn't step back. He stayed close, palms resting lightly on my arms. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we fight side by side, no matter what comes." I lifted my eyes to his. "And after?" "After." His thumb traced a slow arc along my forearm. "After we choose again. Every day, no fate. No bond forced by moons or marks. Just us choosing. The words settled deep. Pain for every old scar they covered. Joy so bright it almost hurt. Sadness for what had been lost. Happiness for what was being built. The contradiction lived in my chest like a second heartbeat. I smiled, open, trembling, alive. Then mark me, I whispered. Not to claim, to remember. That I chose this. That I chose you. His breath caught. Eyes searched mine, checking, always checking. Are you sure? I've never been sure. He exhaled shakily, then leaned in. His forehead rested against mine first, warm, steady. Then his lips brushed my temple, my cheek, the corner of my mouth, soft, asking. I answered by tilting my head, baring the side of my neck where the old mark had faded to silver. His teeth grazed the skin, gentle at first, testing. Then firmer, a sharp, perfect sting as they sank in. Not deep, not brutal, but deliberate. Claim and promise in one breath. Heat bloomed from the point of contact, spreading through me like sunlight after endless night. I gasped, fingers curling into his shirt, holding on as the new mark settled, warm, bright, mine to carry. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. Lyra, I touched the fresh mark with trembling fingers. It pulsed in time with my heart, alive, chosen, whole. We stayed like that, foreheads pressed together, breathing each other's air until the first gray light of pre-dawn crept under the door. Outside, the pack was gathering. Horns would sound soon. Vale took my hand. Ready? I squeezed once. Ready. We stepped into the cool morning together. The northern ridge waited, rogues beyond it, an ancient enemy stirring in the shadows of old prophecies. But we walked toward it not as broken pieces, not as replacements or afterthoughts, as equals, as chosen, as us. And whatever storm came next, we would meet it smiling, through tears, through fire, through everything. Because love, real love, isn't fate. It's the bravest choice we ever make, again and again. If this tale of Lyra's heartbreak, fierce reclaiming, and the slow burning hope of a love chosen, not fated, resonated with you. If you felt the ache of betrayal in your chest, the quiet thrill when she finally smiled through the pain, the way your own heart lifted when she said, I choose this under the moonlight, then let me ask you something. What would you do if you came home from your own war, any war, and found the person who promised forever had already given their mark to someone else? Would you shatter? Would you burn it all down? Would you walk away forever? Or would you, somewhere deep inside, find the strength to choose yourself first? And then maybe, just maybe, choose someone new who sees every scar and still stays. Drop a comment below and tell me, which version of Lyra lives inside you right now? The one still grieving what was lost? The one smiling through the tears as she rises? Or the one already reaching for a hand that doesn't demand but simply offers? And if this story left you wanting more, of second chance heat, of chosen bonds, of wolves who fight for love instead of fate, hit that like so. Share it with someone who needs to remember they're allowed to choose again. And tell me in one word or one sentence, what does Lyra's final mark make you feel? I'm reading every single reply. Your words become part of the next story. Let's keep choosing together.